guys, today we have a video on thrash drumming in support, of course, of my new book, Thrash Metal Drumming, on Hudson Music or Amazon.com. Pick up a copy of that if you're interested, or if you just want to support the channel, you can let it collect dust. I don't care. But either way, we're talking about cymbal playing today. So when you're playing skank beats and other types of metal beats, you often have to do a lot of repetitive cymbal playing, whether that's ride or hi-hat. And today, of course, we'll use the ride since it's on the camera side. And there are a few different techniques you can use to make that work out in your favor, because of course if you can't play long enough, if your arm is dying halfway through the song, if you can't get a reasonable volume, etc., you're going to have a problem playing metal drums. So this is sort of an issue. And if you've seen some of my other thrash videos, you know that I think skank beats are best played where you're playing twice as many ride cymbals as kicks and snares. So basically ride on the downbeat and on the upbeat, sort of the best way to do it. So how do we accomplish that? Well, we'll check out a few ways you can do that. Okay, so the simplest way to play a skank beat type pattern on the ride is just to use wrist strokes, where every stroke is going to be the same and you're just going to have a linear progression of the stick through the stroke motion. Okay, so if you do this, you're relying on musculature a lot and rebound less so to make this happen, although of course you do want rebound. You're not just trying to dead stroke the thing. But I don't like this technique because I just can't sustain it long enough or do it fast enough to make it work. But I'll give you a demo of what it would look like if I just simply used my wrist in like a German grip. Okay, that's effective for medium to slowish tempos. I couldn't go much faster and I couldn't do a whole song of that technique because it's sort of labor intensive. Now, in order to speed that up or make it easier to do, the next thing we could do is play with our fingers instead. So there are a couple of ways of doing that. You could play in an American grip and just lean towards the finger side of it, or you could play in a French grip, which would be your thumb on the top. Either way, using a lot of finger to get the bounce to happen and to use less energy to do so. Okay, so I'll give you an example of what that would look like. Okay, so as you can see, that was effective, but you know, I don't feel as confident in my grip when I'm playing in French grip. It just feels like the stick's a little more squirrely. If I had to do a big fill coming out of that or going into that, I'd have to change my grip, I think, because I don't typically play French grip. So for me, that's not the best option, although that obviously will work and it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. Another thing you could do is you could play like push-pull strokes. This is something that a lot of metal drummers do, where I have a couple of videos on push-pull already. If you want to see that up close, I have slow-mo, I have explanations, etc. on the channel. But where you're going to open your fingers on one stroke and close them on the next, such that you're getting two different types of stroke, and it helps you play faster and longer, and there's lots of benefits to that. And so I'll show you what that would look like for the same beat. Even though I think I'm pretty good at push-pull strokes in a general sense, I don't typically play thrash beats that way. I think that's obvious from the clip. That one was kind of sketchy. So that's not what I do. It is what a lot of people do, though. It is a valid option if that's what you've practiced. I haven't been practicing that way. But, so the thing that's going to happen with that and the next thing I'm going to talk about is that there are two halves, and so you have to decide which half to put on the kick and which half to put on the snare, because there's obviously two ways that can go. I was putting my push stroke on the snare and my pull stroke on the kick, but you could flip it around. Maybe I just chose the wrong one. It's something you have to think about when you do a stroke with two halves, though. The next type of stroke we'll talk about is the Molar Stroke, and that is similarly a two-halved stroke. There's a down and an up. I like to do the Molar Stroke. That's sort of my thing. But not in a conventional way necessarily. We'll get to that in a second. The thing you have to think about, though, again, is which side is which. I like to put my downstroke on the snare so that the loud half of the cymbal hit, to the extent that they're not the same. I mean, there's obviously going to be some variation. That matches with my snare. So that's just my personal preference. I guess you could do it the other way. It would look like this. Now I like Molar Stroke on the ride and the hi-hat because it doesn't rely so much on bounce as say the finger strokes or the push-pull would. And that makes it a really good option for the hi-hat, which if you have it open and kind of sloshy doesn't give you that much rebound. But the way that I was playing it, which is more of the standard way you would play Molar Stroke, isn't the way I typically do it on the ride because it kind of puts my elbow at a funny angle. So what I do is more akin to a timpani stroke, which I think is strange. For at least a lot of people it's strange. Where I'm going to play Molar Strokes, but I'm going to put my thumb on top. And so I'm going to use my wrist sort of almost in the opposite direction that most people would play Molar Strokes. And this is kind of maybe a jazz technique in a way, although not exactly. But I'll show you what that looks like. So if you thought that looked weird, you're right, it was kind of weird. But it helps me keep my elbow closer into my body, less stress on my shoulder, and play just as fast, all the benefits of Molar Strokes and rebound off the ride and all that stuff. I can also do that on the hi-hat, but there's no reason to turn my arm over when crossing to the left when I'm right-handed. So, just some options to think about for how to play ride cymbal. I know that last one was weird. I'll do it again with the camera zoomed in closer just so you can look at it a little bit and gawk at how strange that might be to some of you who don't normally do this. But yeah. Slowly I'm kind of going like this in halves. So there's sort of a straight half and a twisted half. No matter which way you decide to play your ride cymbal or hi-hat for thrash, there's no right or wrong answer, but you have to make sure that it works fast enough to get to the tempo that you're looking for and that you can continue to do it long enough to play through a significant portion of a song. Hopefully you're not playing a song that is just straight eighth notes or sixteenths, however you want to think about it, on the cymbal the entire time, but you could be, I guess. But you should be able to make it through quite a while of doing that without slowing down or getting tired or cramping up. So whatever's going to work for you. But figuring out how to do this is a much better option than relying on playing half as many cymbal hits or doing some other sort of cheaty kind of a trick to achieve the speeds you want. It's not that hard to get your dominant hand to play fast if you work on it and if you use an appropriate technique. So that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Check out my book, Thrash Metal Drumming, or one of my other instructional books. And I'll see you guys next time.